it's Beth.
And it's Tiz.
And this is...
Trigger warning.
That was a lot calmer on the second go there.
I know I had to breathe a little bit.
You breathed.
I had to breath a little.
That was smart. I
Thank
kind
you.
of came into it with my
octane.
high energy going
you
a little
did.
bit for a minute there.
I'm still recovering from my illness.
Yeah, the illness. If you don't remember the illness, please reference the previous episode.
Yeah. Watch it
I
a
guess.
few times
Was
if
this
you want.
would it have been the previous episode? I don't know how these are going to come out because
Possibly.
I'm not tracking this crap anymore. So who knows?
I believe so.
I don't know. Well, if not,
The
please reference a previous episode.
Yeah, like maybe two back.
If not the previous, a previous. Anyway, this time I'm talking about some survival.
Ooh. Now, guys, Bev said it's a doozy.
It is a whopper.
Put your seatbelts on, friends.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
Yeah, I'm acting real like woo, and it's yay at the end, but it's not so yay at the beginning.
Yeah, that's usually the way it goes.
I'm gonna bring it down a notch.
Okay.
The opposite of emerald. I'm gonna bring it down a notch instead of kicking it up a notch.
Yeah.
So first, I'm gonna start out with some trigger warnings.
Oh my. Okay, as we do.
This involves a plane crash. Might be triggering for people. Death of children's mommy. And this brief discussions about domestic abuse and child abuse. And the child abuse is child sexual abuse, but again, it's very brief. Brief discussions about war and military conflicts with indigenous peoples. And very brief mention of a lost dog.
Aww.
Which is triggering for me. That's the main reason I put that in there.
Okay,
so Magdalena Mucutuy Valencia lived in a small village in Colombia called Puerto Sabalo with her 4 children, aged 11 months to 13 years.
Oh, wow.
When a group of criminals tried to take over the village. To protect her children, she decided to move them to Bogota, Colombia. And the plan was to meet up with her husband, Manuel Miller Ranoque. Manuel was the father to her 2 youngest kids, Kristen, her 11-month-old baby girl, and her little boy, 4-year-old Tien Noriel Ranoque Mucutuy.
What a beautiful name.
Who was described by his aunt as silly and very affectionate. Manuel was also the stepfather to her older daughters, 9-year-old Solani Ranoque Mucutuy. Her aunt said she was always so cheerful, it's like she didn't know what sadness was.
Aww.
And her 13-year-old Leslie Mucutuy, who, according to her aunt, was always listening to music and loved to take selfies. Sounds like most 13-year-olds.
Yeah, for sure.
So on May 1st, 2023, the small little indigenous family boarded a C-206 plane. Besides Magdalena and the 4 kids, there was only the pilot and 1 other passenger on board. Unfortunately, only 35 minutes into the flight, the pilot called out a mayday due to engine failure, and the plane dropped off radar. The plane crashed into an area of dense and difficult-to-access Colombian Amazon rainforest.
Oh, no.
Rescue groups began searching for survivors immediately. But the rainforest is difficult to search with unforgiving terrain, and the searchers were having no luck in finding the missing plane. Brigadier General Sanchez, commander of the Special Forces of the Colombian military, was ordered to join the search. 4 days after the plane went down, a squad of elite soldiers was deployed to the area where the plane was last known to be. Sending military personnel to search for a missing plane had never actually been done in Colombia before. Not only was the area dense rainforest with deadly insects and predators and that kind of thing, it was also the territory where FARC dissidents were known to be living. And the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which in Spanish actually FARC is, it spells out. I didn't even write down the Spanish version because I didn't want to try to pronounce it.
Right.
It wasn't that hard, but I didn't want to try to pronounce it.
Gotcha.
It's a left-wing guerrilla group consisting of peasants and laborers that was officially formed in 1966.
Oh, wow.
Over the decades, The FARC has become known for use of military tactics, terrorism, possible connections to the drug trade, including like funding via the drug trade. Many of the indigenous people of Colombia had joined the FARC or other militia groups to fight back against the Colombian government over the decades.
Mm-hmm.
Other indigenous people had actually been forced into the groups in the past.
Dang.
So it was kind of a mishmash
That's a mess.
of people who voluntarily joined these different groups.
Mm-hmm.
Some being FARC, some being other groups.
Wow, that's crazy.
With similar, some using military tactics, some using terrorism, that kind of thing. So whether or not they were in the FARC, whether they were there voluntarily or not, the different indigenous people of the country and the military had a long and bloody history of confrontations over decades of time.
Yeah. Okay.
So while searching, the military also had to watch for
all those
basically enemy combatants.
Yeah.
Okay. So due to their secretive missions, the military personnel interviewed in the documentary that's on Netflix right now, it's called The Lost Children. They had to wear camouflage paint on their faces while they were being interviewed, and they used aliases instead of their real names. So one of the captains in the Special Forces went by Legionnaire. He remembered all the guys looking at each other as they were being flown in the area, and he said it was just like a thick canopy of trees, and it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was just nothing but green.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. I mean, you see pictures of the Amazon, and there's just
beautiful.
this mist rising. Oh, it's so beautiful. But when you know, there's just this little tiny plane somewhere down there.
And then you have the people you have to worry about that could kill you.
Yeah.
The insects, the other animals in the jungle.
The plants that are probably deadly.
The mosquitoes alone would just be so frustrating.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, now with thick canopy of trees, of course, it's possible that someone could have survived. It's kind of like a cushion in a way.
Okay, yeah.
But the soldiers also knew that if someone had died, or even died a few days later, it would attract wild animals to the crash site. 7 days after the crash, so we're skipping ahead here a few days, the soldiers were systematically searching for the plane. So based on the signal where they lost the plane, like where it had faded out, they had laid out 4 quadrants where it could have crashed.
Okay.
Each quadrant was divided every few kilometers from north to south, and it was being searched systematically with the Special Forces soldiers keeping their eyes peeled for both the plane and their enemy combatants.
Yeah.
They also had concerns about the teams coming into contact with other search teams formed by indigenous members. So non-FARC members, but just indigenous people that also there were tensions because of those past military confrontations.
Oh my gosh.
So they may not have been members of these militia groups,
but they didn't like the military.
There was just they didn't trust each other.
Yeah.
They didn't know each other, they didn't trust each other because there was such a long and bloody history between them.
Would they have been going to try to find this plane to help or to
help
whatever was on the plane?
Both were to help.
Okay.
The children were actually from an indigenous village.
Okay.
Magdalena and the children were indigenous.
Yeah.
And I'm actually about to say, too, Henry Guerrera was a volunteer searcher. He belonged to the Huitoto clan, which is the same one as the indigenous leader that was the passenger. The other passenger on the plane was one of the indigenous.
There was another person on there besides them.
And then the pilot. Yeah. So the other passenger, the mom, and the 4 kids were all indigenous. I don't know about the pilot.
Gotcha.
So everybody was looking for the plane. Like, they were all legitimately looking. They just didn't. They were worried that the indigenous people were worried that the soldier would, like, just knee-jerk reaction shoot them, thinking that it was a FARC member. Mm-hmm. And the soldiers were always worried that
if they see anybody that they're there to kill them, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's bad.
So Henry Guerrera, the volunteer searcher, he had joined a small group of searchers along with Manuel Renoque, the father and stepfather of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry said, "The sun is our guide through the jungle. This is a way of life for our culture, our origin, our roots. It's a way of life that the white world greatly despises."
Mm.
So, using skills that they learned during childhood, when their fathers would take them into the jungle and teach them to navigate it, the men looked for signs to guide them. The first week, they found nothing.
Mm.
One day, somebody from civil aviation told them the last known coordinates of the plane. But the coordinates actually put them 500 meters from the bank of the Apaporis River.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think that was an intentional mislead. I think that was just kind of where a general vicinity.
Mm.
So they kind of imagined what path the plane may have taken and continued from there.
Okay.
Then one day, a 14-year-old boy named Alejandro spoke with them. And Alejandro had never actually left the jungle. He'd never seen civilization before. He was an indigenous boy that lived in the rainforest. And he told Henry and the other searchers that there was a blue house in the bush nearby. So he leads them to the blue house. And for a boy who's never seen a plane and the blue and white wreckage of a plane, it was best described by him as a house. So this poor boy leads them to this house in the bush, and it's the wreckage of the plane.
Oh my gosh.
They quickly check inside, and they return to Manuel, and they tell him the bad news. There's nobody alive inside.
Mm-hmm.
His children, his wife, they're dead. Manuel did not react. He was completely silent. So, day 16. That was day 15. Day 16, after Henry and the others had found the plane, the Special Forces soldiers are told that the indigenous searchers actually located the wreckage. So the captain, whose alias was Legionnaire, has one task now to complete. He has to identify how many bodies are in the plane. They have to actually go through and count now.
Yeah.
So the plane is essentially standing in a vertical position, nose to the ground.
Okay. Oh, wow.
They find a woman with long hair wearing smaller size shoes, and they're able to identify Magdalena, so the mother of the children. She's only 33 years old. They can confirm that she is deceased. Because of the position of the plane, they couldn't actually see the other bodies, though. Meanwhile, Henry and the other indigenous searchers are sad, but they also feel a sense of accomplishment. They've completed their mission. They found the plane, just like they promised they would. But then one of the men in the group thinks of something kind of odd. He's like, in a plane crash, the luggage flies out everywhere and lands all around the plane. He said, but I remember seeing a suitcase that was open and it looked like someone dug through it. At the same time, a military searcher radios Legionnaire and says, "We found a baby bottle in the jungle." The soldiers continue searching, and soon they find a piece of passion fruit. It's a wild fruit that grows in the forest with human bite marks on it. Then they come across a place where somebody obviously took refuge, a place to rest or to sleep or maybe even to treat a wound. There were purple-handled scissors laying there. So with all this evidence pointing to someone surviving the crash, the soldiers make more of an effort to identify how many bodies are in the plane.
Right.
And then they're able to confirm that there are only 2 more adult bodies on board. There are no children on the plane.
What?
So the children had all survived the crash. But at this point, it's been over 2 weeks since the plane crashed.
Yeah. In the well, but they're indigenous.
So what were the odds that the 4 kids, the oldest being 13, could survive this long in the rainforest? What if they were injured?
Yeah.
If one of them had a wound, as the purple-handled scissors may have indicated, it was likely to be infected by then. What would they have been feeding the baby? She was 11 months old, so she couldn't eat the same things that the other kids could.
Yeah.
There were lots of tales of adults that had been stranded in the Amazon rainforest and had been unable to survive. So could 4 children do that?
Right.
And there were, like we talked about, there were toxic plants, there were stinging insects, venomous snakes, and it rained 16 hours a day in the rainforest.
Oh my gosh.
And we're still, with the searchers, the soldiers or the indigenous searchers be able to find them. By this time, it was estimated that the kids could have walked up to 100 kilometers from the plane by that point.
Oh my gosh.
That put their search perimeter at 3 times the size of Bogota, the capital of Colombia.
Whoa.
So I tried to figure out what size that is. So a quick Google search says Bogota is 1,587 square kilometers.
Okay.
So that would put their search area, if it was 3 times that, at 4,761 square kilometers, which is 1,838 square miles. Which my little brain can't wrap around. But 1,800 square miles is a whole bunch of miles. I don't know if I did that right, but even if I didn't, 3 times the size of Bogota, if you even look at a picture of Bogota, is huge.
Yeah, it's the capital, for crying out loud.
It's huge.
Well, our little city right here, where we currently are, is just under 15 square miles.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it was rainforest, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, if they walked 100 kilometers in any direction, and then who knows from what direction, and then any other direction, and in circles, who knows. So, Brigadier General Sanchez was asked how long he would search for the kids, and he said, quote, until we find all of them.
Yes.
So, 50 more men were sent out to the jungle to join the search.
That's fantastic.
This time, instead of the quiet search that they were doing before to try to avoid running into the FARC people, the soldiers made noise, hoping to draw the kids toward them. They shouted the kids' names. They played an audio message from their grandmother, Fatima Mucutuy, telling them if they could hear the message, they should stay where they are, don't move, stay put. The message was played via cell phone connected to megaphones by a couple of different people in different places in the forest. It was also pumped out over the jungle via helicopter.
And it was serious. Yeah. I love this.
They brought in a military search and rescue dog, Wilson, who was very experienced. He was a 1.5-year-old Belgian Malinois.
Oh my God.
They had 100 units placed in each quadrant to increase their effectiveness in the search. They dropped flyers from helicopters that were written in both Spanish and Huitoto that told the kids to stay close to the water and don't move. They also had extremely powerful spotlights that they used to guide the children to safety.
Wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah. On day 18,
oh my gosh,
the military removed the 3 bodies from the plane. So they were Magdalena Mucutuy, the pilot Hernando Murcio Morales, and the Huitoto leader Herman Mendoza Hernandez. Sadly, that day, Wilson, their search and rescue dog, got lost in the rainforest.
Shut your mouth right this second.
So that day, between the 3 bodies being removed from the plane and their loyal dog getting lost, was a very difficult one for the soldiers who had spent 2 weeks already in the rainforest.
Yeah.
So, day 20, the Colombian military decided they needed a new strategy. 20 days.
Gosh.
They used their most advanced search and rescue tactics so far, and they'd come up with nothing. It was time to do something different. So, they decided to team up. 5 groups of indigenous searchers were put together, members of the Indigenous Guard, who had agreed to combine their indigenous and military search effort in what was called Operation Hope. This was the first time that the 2 sides had joined together for a common goal. Despite their wariness and their mistrust, eventually there would be 85 indigenous people voluntarily boarding military helicopters with armed soldiers.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how they felt.
I know it. One indigenous volunteer, Nicholas Ordonez, hadn't planned on joining the effort until others started telling him that he should go. They told him, "You have deep knowledge of the jungle, you should go." Quote. Mm-hmm. Nicholas was born there, he lived there, and he considered it his home, but he'd been away for a long time. When he was 12 or 13, he was recruited into an illegal militia, and he hadn't returned to his community until he was about 17. As an adult, he didn't like being around anyone with a gun. But there he was, flying into remote and dangerous territory with men carrying firearms.
Wow.
Elisir Munoz had heard about the plane crash, but hadn't paid much attention to the media coverage. It sounded like government business to him, and as an indigenous man whose father and brother had disappeared 23 years before, he didn't care about government problems.
Wow.
He believed that his father was recruited to an armed militia. His brother may have been as well. He didn't know for sure. He only knew that they had disappeared, and he wasn't the only person in the indigenous communities who had suffered similar losses. When he heard about the plane crash, he ignored it until he learned about the missing children. He said that the military doesn't think of the Indigenous Guard. They underestimate their knowledge and ignore them, so the Guard doesn't want to work with the military. But this time, 4 innocent children's lives were at risk. As the search continued, the indigenous people, including Henry's group, we talked about before, began to feel that there were dark forces in the jungle that were keeping the kids from them. They say that each territory has its own guardian. These are spirits called duendes.
Oh, yeah.
They can brush against you. You feel them, but you don't see them. They knew they needed to fight the duende because the duende had the children. They were scared, but the leader of the group was Don Rubio, the Huitoto shaman and elder. Don asked the duende to return the children and leave the searchers alone. He told the duende that the issue was between him and the duende.
Okay.
He sounds like a cool dude.
Yeah, he does.
Despite working together, the military and the indigenous groups used different search techniques. The military men, of course, walked in straight lines, not wanting to miss 1 inch of the jungle, 1 clue.
Right.
Like we see law enforcement do usually.
Yeah. That's like what you do.
The indigenous walked as if they, too, were children, following natural paths in the forest.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
Especially for kids.
Yeah. They're both really smart ways of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm kind of glad they had 2 different people to do both ways.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't want to do one way and not have the other way to cover my butt. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed, yeah, for sure.
Eventually, the indigenous people did start finding some footprints. Then they found a lid of a baby bottle. Then a used diaper, and a shirt that belonged to one of the kids, and a pair of shoes, and a green towel. On day 26, baby Kristen turned 1 year old, lost in the Colombian rainforest with her brother and sisters. Don Rubio, the shaman, felt like he was in a never-ending battle with the duende. He felt that he would end up being killed by it, and he said it got harder every day. Day 29. 6 indigenous men, including Don, 5 journalists, and 1 officer got very sick. They had bad coughs, chest pain, chills, and fevers. Don was coughing up blood and said it wasn't a cold or a COVID. The duende was strangling him. They didn't want to ask the military for help, but they knew they had to team up with them. A medic from the military, whose alias happened to be Shaman,
That's funny.
came to their camp to help. Because they had been wet for days in the rainforest, the shaman believed that they had developed pneumonia. So while nursing them back to health, they got to know each other a little. They began to talk. And Shaman and the few other soldiers made a point of leaving their rifles at their own camp before they came to help the indigenous patients. So it was a way to build trust. They didn't need their rifles while they were there.
Because they're going to be with allies, we'll just say.
Yes, exactly. With allies, they were taking care of sick men.
I
they didn't need
that they were willing to do that.
Yeah. So a few days later, everyone was feeling better. They were ready to get back to the search. And their illness made them all wonder how the children were doing.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
If they were only better because they received the medical attention they needed and they were able to rest, what were the children going through?
Yeah, because it's been like a month.
They were wandering through the same wet forest that the men had been doing. Had one of them already died? Had all of them? And the searchers began feeling as though someone was walking around their camp at night watching them. Even the military men said they felt like someone was, quote, out there when they did nighttime searches. The soldiers said strange things would happen, like their compasses spinning around and around and around. all of them, indigenous and military alike, were feeling a little freaked out. While the indigenous searchers wondered if the duende was keeping the children hidden, the kids' grandmother, Fatima, worried that it might be the eldest child, Leslie, that was doing the hiding. Fatima said that Leslie may have wanted to hide because she wouldn't have wanted to see her stepfather, Emmanuel. Leslie's teacher described Leslie as being quiet, sometimes a little too quiet. Leslie liked to draw and was good at it, but it gave her an excuse to be away from other kids. Sometimes she would come in looking like she'd been crying a lot. Leslie's grandmother and aunt agreed that Leslie saw how her mother Magdalena was being treated. Manuel would hit Magdalena with a curved stick called a planera stick, which left scars on her neck.
Oh.
Magdalena's hair would cover the scars, but Leslie could see and hear the abuse happening. And according to her family, the children could be hiding from the searchers because they were scared. Unfortunately, the searchers had no idea about the abuse the children had witnessed, and they thought Manuel was a good father who loved and cared for his kids. On day 33, Brigadier General Sanchez had finally decided it was time to relieve his troops. He felt that they were not going to find the children alive. For over a month, he'd been hoping and praying for a sign that they were still alive. It felt like they were so close, but then nothing. With many of the soldiers gone, the search group was suddenly much smaller. Many of them felt like there was nowhere left to look. But Don Rubio told them to have faith. On day 39, the indigenous men decided there was only one choice left: Yahweh. Yahweh as God, he was their last option. Yahweh is more widely known as ayahuasca throughout indigenous communities in Colombia and surrounding countries. The ritual is sacred, where they drink a hallucinogenic beverage called Yahweh, made from a plant that grows in the rainforest. The ritual is used for healing, for a spiritual connection, to heal a broken heart, or in this case, they hoped, to find the lost children. Henry Guerrera's aunt made Yahweh for their group, and it was flown in by military helicopter, a favor from General Sanchez. That evening, Manuel, the children's father/stepfather, tried first. He threw up. The jungle rejected him, they said. They told him he must leave immediately. There was only enough left for one more try. So Don Rubio, the Huitoto shaman, would try next. If he failed, they all agreed they would leave the next day.
Okay.
It would all be over.
Yeah.
Rubio said, quote, "He takes me or I take him." After taking the shot, Rubio experienced the feeling of turning into a tiger, leaving the dark and entering a world of light. Day 40. Henry went to Rubio and asked how Yahweh went. Rubio told him it went fine. He said, quote, "We'll find the children today at 3 p.m.
Shut your mouth.
Henry had already arranged for the military helicopter to pick them up that day, whether they found the children or not. But the searchers said that they felt different. Nicholas, that I spoke of earlier, he'd been a member of the armed militia when he was 12 or 13. Basically the same age as Leslie, the oldest of the kids they were looking for. Nicholas said that day the jungle felt different. He said it was at peace. Rubio told the searchers to go northwest. Rubio stayed at the camp, waiting as the searchers set off. The hours passed by, and then one by one, the men began returning to camp, all with the same heartbreaking news. Nothing. No signs of the children. The last 4 searchers, all from a place called Putumayo, which included Nicholas and Alicier, returned around 2 p.m. They packed up their belongings, and with sorrow in their hearts, they began their hike to where the helicopter pickup would be. As they walked out uphill, the jungle was getting thicker, and Nicholas thought he heard something. He looked around, checking to see where his friends were, checking to see if they heard it too. Was that a baby crying? Then Nicholas looked straight ahead, and there they were, 4 kids standing directly in front of him. He said the kids looked scared, like they wanted to run, so he held his arms out and said, "Family." The children were weak, very thin and dirty, but they were alive.
That is amazing.
The first thing that 4-year-old Tien Noriel said was, quote, "My mother died in the plane." They don't think he would have made it another day or two. He could no longer walk. There were 4 searchers from Putumayo, so each one carried one of the 4 children. The children were handed over to the Colombian Armed Forces, where they were hospitalized for the medical attention that they badly needed. The children had been found 4.5 kilometers, or 2.8 miles, from their last camp, the indigenous searchers' camp. The documentary didn't say what time they were found exactly, but if they began walking out of camp around 2, then I'm guessing hiking that distance through harsh terrain, feeling tired and disappointed and sad, it was very likely around 3 p.m., like Don Rubio predicted from his vision, thanks to Yahe. When the news got out that the children had been found, the other searchers, indigenous and military alike, hugged each other and cried together. The combined search effort between the Colombian Armed Forces and the Indigenous Guard, coined Operation Hope, had proved that the 2 parties could work peacefully together. Henry Guerrera said that the part the indigenous people played in this has reminded the world that they exist and can contribute. Since their rescue, allegations of abuse were brought against Manuel Renoque. Unfortunately, the abuse allegations were not for the domestic abuse of Magdalena, but for the sexual abuse of Leslie, his 13-year-old stepdaughter. From what I could tell, he has now been sentenced to 32 years in prison for the abuse.
Good.
I'm not sure if that's accurate. I don't know a lot about the media sources in Colombia, but 32 years is what I saw reported the most. Some of those were also in Spanish and translated by my 3 years of high school Spanish. Some of them were also already translated to English, but I could tell by the translation that it was not done by a fluent English and fluent Spanish speaker.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sure.
Okay.
But if that's inaccurate, I apologize.
He's at least in prison or whatever for some amount of time.
Yes, he is in prison for the abuse of that little girl. At the time of the Netflix documentary, the children were being cared for by Colombia's Institute of Family Welfare, but they were still able to see their aunt and grandmother and stuff regularly. Their other family. I wasn't able to find anything more up to date on them than now, but I also didn't search too hard because they were found once when it really counted. So let's just let them be.
Let them be. I like that.
Because of the kids being so young, this was mostly told from the perspective of the adults involved. Unfortunately, that meant that politics and prejudices were involved. Different sources listed different timelines, credited different people with different tasks or quotes. So I want to finish this with Leslie's report of what happened after the crash.
Oh, fantastic.
As I read this, keep in mind that she was only 13. After the accident, I don't know how long I was unconscious for. When I woke up, there was a lot of blood and I had a large cut on my left side, which was very painful. I could hear my siblings crying and crying. My mother was making noises. Then she stopped. Maybe if I had woken up earlier, I could have saved her. I pulled my sister out from underneath my mother. I knew we couldn't stay, and we had to abandon the plane so we could find more food and find something to drink. My leg was hurting so much, I could hardly stand and walk at all. I got all the strength I had and dragged myself on my knees. I did that for the first 20 days we were lost. I knew that I just had to keep going. My biggest worry the whole time was keeping baby Kristen alive. I had to take care of her. I knew she needed more food than we did. My mother had taught me about fruits we could eat in the jungle, like milpesas. I made a fishing rod out of what I could find. With the rod, we were able to catch some fish. We ate the fish raw. It tasted horrible. We tried to follow the voice, the announcement in their grandmother's voice, but it would fade. I would try to get my sisters and my brother to go to sleep each night. I didn't really sleep. One night in the jungle, we almost sat on a snake. I was able to kill it with a stick, though. Tien became so weak that he could no longer stand on his own. One day, I dreamt they would never find us. My heart was beating fast, and I struggled so hard to breathe. I got up and decided to leave my sisters and my brother by themselves. I walked away to be on my own. After 20 minutes, I realized I had to go back. I knew I had to protect my brother and my sisters. Kristen and Tien were very close to dying. When I saw the man, I collapsed. I no longer had to keep my brother and sister alive. We were now safe. And that's the story of the Mucutuy children and their survival for 40 days in the Amazon rainforest. And again, that documentary is called The Lost Children, and it's on Netflix.
That is absolutely amazing and heartbreaking
It's
and
chilling.
everything.
Yeah.
And what an amazing girl she is.
Yeah. She took care of those little
Because the other
babies.
ones couldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, the two littlest ones were,
I mean, they were
on the
both
cusp.
practically babies.
Yeah,
So,
they
like,
were
they
on the
really
cusp of
couldn't
death.
help.
They were the youngest, so they were,
And
they
then
would not
she's
have made it much
injured
longer.
and everything.
Yeah. I know, she said that she basically crawled for the first 20 days. I was just like, did I just see that right? Like,
oh my gosh.
yeah. And to think that what she had come out of was abuse by her stepfather.
And her mother is dead.
Yeah.
And her mother
And
is
she
dead.
knew, like, after the plane crash that her safety, her mom was gone. And that plane was going to where their stepfather was. They were going to go live with him.
I can't even imagine how. Maybe she was like, whatever. No, that's not what she said. You know? But, like, after going through that for 40 days.
Yeah.
Through a rainforest.
I don't think she was hiding because she was afraid of him, but at the same time,
she
like...
She didn't really want to be found, but she did.
Yeah, like, I would have... but he had, like, intimidated her into not telling anybody that it was happening, is what I was reading from the news stories that I could pick up.
Person.
And so I guess her mom, I'm assuming her mother didn't know. And so her mother was taking them to live with their dad because it would be safer there. Oh. Because these criminals had tried to take over their village or whatever. And then they end up in this plane crash, and she knows even when I'm safe, I'm not safe. Because she knew that they would go to their father, their quote-unquote father. Even though he wasn't actually her father.
No safety from him.
Yeah. But she has, an aunt and a grandmother that they interviewed for the documentary. And then I guess the Colombian Institute of Family Welfare was the one actually caring for them at this point.
And also, kudos to the indigenous and the military for working together.
Yeah.
And actually... like, making plans and doing the thing, because...
Good job for putting on your big boy pants and just dealing with your shit. And just dealing
with each other, because these 4 kids are lost in the jungle.
Because they needed it.
I know, that's amazing.
Yeah. Because the indigenous people ended up finding them, but without the military resources of the helicopters and stuff, getting them then out of the rainforest to medical attention by the time they... Yeah, before the little ones died, would have been nearly impossible.
Well, just think of the ones that got really sick.
Yeah.
Of the searchers and everything.
Yeah.
Like, they would have died.
Yeah, if they had pneumonia, they may not have made it if they hadn't had the military there to help them get nursed back to health.
And then the medics came over without their rifles and everything, so it wasn't like...
It's just called respect, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the same people inside, like, it's,
Yeah.
It reminds me of the same way that the U.S. has been with our indigenous people, too, though. There's always been, with just about every place on this earth,
right,
that tension and that hostile crap between indigenous people and the people that came in and took over.
So
yeah,
that's unfortunately everywhere has been conquered at some point in time.
And it's like, do we always have to have some kind of tragedy like this to have the people come together?
Yes, I think a lot of times that is what it takes, unfortunately.
And then, unfortunately, like, after something like this, like, is it still smooth?
Right.
Can they still talk to each other?
Right, it's like, okay, can we get,
or
like, a
does it just go back to the way it was before?
Yeah. Like, as time has gone by, they kind of...
Yeah, because this was May of 2023.
Oh, okay.
It's been 2 years now. Is everything still smooth? Are y'all still friends? You still good?
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
Now these kids are 2 years older, and like, Are those just still the little indigenous kids that y'all helped a couple years ago, or you still know them by name?
Oh my goodness, the youngest one's almost 3.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a little toddler just toddling around
Yep.
doing her little cute things. And the oldest one's almost ready to drive.
Yeah.
At least here in the U.S. she would be.
Yeah.
I don't know about
yeah, I don't know.
Colombia. Wow, what
Yeah.
a story. You were right. That was a
Yeah,
doozy.
I told you it was a whopper.
40 days.
I think they should have given the stepdad another 8 years, and then it would have been 40 years in prison, so a year for every day that they were gone, that they were stuck in the rainforest. Not because he made them get stuck in the rainforest, but just because that would have been...
Because he's at peace.
Just perfect.
Yeah.
Just because that would have been like, I don't know, a movie.
I just can't imagine the oldest one, how she was feeling. How conflicted she would have been.
Yeah.
Wanting to be found, wanting everyone to be okay, but knowing she would have to go with her stepdad.
Yeah.
And knowing what would happen and that her mother was gone, and then being like, walking away and then being like, no, I can't do that. And coming back to them.
I know. What a grown up, responsible thing to, because for a second she probably was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And an adult would feel that way, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Because she went above and beyond anything that anybody would ever expect.
Yeah, killing a snake.
She kept
making a fishing
those
pole.
little babies alive longer than some adults have kept their kids alive in normal conditions.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know.
And thank goodness her mom had taught her, the safe things to eat in the jungle.
Yeah.
And all that.
Because she was part of an indigenous community.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what to eat.
If these had been non-indigenous kids, would they have survived? I don't know.
I don't know. My gut instinct would be like, no, they probably wouldn't.
I know if they were little white kids from the U.S., they probably wouldn't have. Because we don't know anything.
I wouldn't know what was okay.
Yeah.
If it looked pretty and it smelled good, I'd probably eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd probably drink bad water, too.
Yeah, probably. At least there's 16 hours of water coming down.
I know, that's true.
Can you imagine?
But she's also injured.
Yeah.
And she's having to carry the youngest.
How did her wound not get infected and stuff?
Seriously.
I don't...
And I'm sure they all had, scratches and bug bites and all that junk.
Yeah. And they
she's
were
probably
filthy.
having to carry the youngest one.
They were hiding inside of trees. Where the bottoms of trees were kind of rotted out or, had, died out or stuff. Or, I guess, where they'd fallen over and there were, spots where you could climb up in there. That's where they would hide to, sleep and rest and stuff.
To be kind of safe.
Yeah, because there are, animal, predators, large animals in the jungle and stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. They were just, what little geniuses and stuff. They just, it's crazy.
The heat alone would have driven me insane.
The moisture, just being
humidity.
Constantly wet, damp.
That's so gross.
Yeah, in the summer here, when it's really humid, I can't stand that feeling of not being able to not be damp.
Yeah, I just need to be dry for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Just let my skin be dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
Their little fingers must have just been all wrinkled up and
Now they might have been used to it some because they're indigenous.
Yeah.
But
still,
with everything else on top of that, that's crazy.
Wow, what a story. They're just little heroes. When I listened to this documentary, I was just like, are you kidding me right now? I was just amazed. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, I just want to give props to those little ones. That's why I wanted to end it with her words, because it was...
Well, we know exactly what happened, as far as...
Yeah, it was all...
Without the politics and all that crap.
Yeah, it was all just... She couldn't give a day by day, of course, so a lot of it was, the documentary is basically not each day, but days at a time,
Yeah.
And it was interesting, definitely from that perspective, and the conflict and, that kind of stuff, the tension and everything, but it was also just kind of I just want to know what the kids went through.
Yeah.
I just want to hear what they have to say, because they were the ones that were going through every minute and every hour of that freaking torture.
And can you imagine hearing your grandmother's voice and
I
not
know.
being able to figure out how to get to it.
Yeah. And
That's
the
so
message was
sad.
saying to stay put, but they're kids. They're
Yeah.
like, no, wait, we're right here. And they're trying
Yeah.
to follow it. And it's a helicopter. Like, if the one over the helicopter, like, if they're hearing that one, that thing could be who knows how far away.
Yeah.
And as it's moving away, you're just further and further trying to get to it. And there's no way to move through the forest easily.
And at night they can't.
Yeah.
You can't see.
And those spotlights, I'm sure they shine really bright, but the forest is so dense.
It's so thick, yeah.
There's just no way that it can, unless you just happen to be in a spot where you look over and see it.
Man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Have mercy. That was really crazy.
Well,
I got no more words.
I think I done made her speechless, y'all.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
You can say that one thing that we say at the end.
You guys, please, please do not forget. Watch for deer.